Good evening from Dubai. The sun has dropped down over the horizon. In fact, did so quite some time ago. So it's night practice now, 90 minutes, where the teams and drivers entered in this first round of the International Endurance Series by Creventic will be getting themselves used to this tight in parts, twisty and technical 3 and a bit miles of the Dubai Formula One circuit. The 2019 calendar starts here this weekend, and then there's a bit of a gap before at the end of March we head to the 12 Hours of Mugello in Italy. All of the races this year feature both the TCE and the GTE grids, and the third round of the year is at the iconic Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium on the 19th and 20th of April. In May, it's the 24th and the 25th as we head back to the Czech Republic and Brno for another 12-hour contest before heading down to the south of Europe to Portugal and Portimao for the first of 3 late-season 24-hour races on the 5th, 6th and 7th of July. End of August and the beginning of September, it's Barcelona and the Circuit de Catalunya, and we'll round off the season with the 24 hours of COTA at the Circuit of the Americas just outside Austin in Texas, the 15th to the 17th of November. But the Odyssey and the travelling and the point scoring starts right here for the Championship of the Continents and the European Championship. Hello everybody and welcome to the Dubai Autodrome, nestled in the heart of Motor City, just outside the main conurbation of Dubai. There's a crescent moon this evening that looks absolutely superb. It's a relatively good night in terms of cloud cover. It's going to get cold later on, but there is a bit of a wind blowing, which is going to be behind the cars as they break into turn 1. And it's the Radio Show Limited team who are with you for this session, live in sound and vision. Paul Truswell is alongside me, John Hindhaugh, in the booth, and we've got in the pit lane Joe Bradley and Bruce Jones. More from them in a wee while, but first some thoughts from Paul Truswell as the cars are lining up. 1 or 2 going in for fuel at the end of the pit lane, and we should mention, of course, there's no in-pit lane fueling if this is your first time watching a Hankook FIA International Endurance Series. Keeps the costs down, safety reasons as well, but we have got a little line getting ready to go out onto the circuit, Paul. Good evening.
Yes, good evening, John. I'm sure there is going to be, everybody will fuel up for the whole session in effect, because you might as well get all the fuel in now that you need to get yourself through the hour and a half of this session. So entirely sensible if that's what they're doing. I was eulogising earlier on about the way that these cars are inspiring. They get the heart pumping, the adrenaline flowing in the daylight. Well, do it in nighttime and the whole thing multiplies by 5, because there's something special about watching racing cars at night, and I suppose it's partly because they don't do it that often. I mean, there are more and more races that run into the night these days than there used to be, but still that magic is maintained of the headlights picking out the reflective elements of the circuit, and you get an appreciation of the change of direction so much better with the car. If you can see the headlights pointing in different directions, you can see the brake discs glowing red, you can see sparks coming from splitters as they run across the ground, and as I say, it's the same excitement but multiplied by 5 when they go out in this kind of this for a practice session. It's called night practice, but there is an element of qualifying about it as well, because the drivers have to do 2 laps each, and if you've got a team of 5 drivers, then each of those has to do 2 laps around the circuit before they're going to be allowed to start in the race. Good opportunity as well for the teams and the mechanics to work out just how hard it is to work on a car when you can't really see what you're doing.
Let's head down to the pit lane and get a little bit of a look, a listen, and some kind of idea of what's going on down there as we go green flag for night practice. Oh, and a spin coming out of the pit lane for the 603. That is the BMW. That has gone around immediately on cold tyres, just coming out of the pits and releasing presumably the pit lane speed limit. In fact, probably didn't even have it on. That's the G&R Motorsport Belgian BMW. It's the E46 BMW M3 classic shape of car, comes out of the pit lane, gets on the throttle, very close to the end of the pit lane, very lucky there not to do some damage. Joe Bradley is down there in the pit lane. Joe, that wasn't the start that they wanted, but they're good. This is a time for everybody to get out there and try some night laps. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. I think we got away with that. That was pretty close, considering I was just about to comment about how many cars were just eager to get out into this session. Pretty much the whole field have come out of the garages, they're lined up in echelon, and the ones that aren't are forming a queue already, and they were waiting eagerly to get out. And thankfully that car spun away into across to the left and out of harm's way. The Lotus, that's the Italian team, the 634 numbered Lotus, currently shown in 63rd place at the start of this session. This car came out of its garage. It seems to be some kind of education program that was going on between the engineer and the driver. He's now got it going. The 633's already left, so that's good news for them. But the 634 there, that's the gold leaf liveried car. I'm not quite sure whether there was a problem or not, or just the driver cycling through what he had to cycle through. And good news is, the Loti are out on the circuit.
Thank you, Joe. Joe Bradley down there in the pit lane. The 633 with the green car was... they had some engine problems with that Toyota supercharged engine in the early session, which kept it away from the track. The other one we've got to look forward to seeing out on the track is the Santalock GT3 car, Paul, which was getting an engine change earlier on.
Well, it was. It's not gone out yet, but I don't think that's necessarily... oh, it has gone out. I beg your pardon. No, it didn't look far enough down the line. It's Christian Keckers who's taken the car out first of all, and he was very much early in that queue, so he's already out and setting some good lap times. And I was just musing over what happened with that spinning car. A bizarre moment. It seemed to, even after it stopped spinning, take a long time to get pointing in the right direction. Now, I suppose in a sense there was no hurry because there was no chance of anything coming around the circuit, so it was a good time, if there is ever a good time to spin coming out the pit lane.
Well, nothing coming down the main straight at that point.
Precisely what I mean.
Could have been horrible otherwise.
So, well, quite. So, as I say, I was a bit taken aback by it. It was the Dutch driver Geert Hoedhout who was at the wheel of the 603 BMW when it went through there, and he has yet to come through at the completion of that lap. But I think if I was him, I'd stay out and pretend it didn't happen rather than bring the car into the pits.
I'm sure nobody saw it other than us, well, in fairness.
Even so, you don't want to be coming back into the pits again because the same thing might happen on the next time. No.
Well, true enough. Let's go down to Bruce Jones, our second voice in the pit lane. Whilst we're watching the cars getting up to speed, and throughout this session, we'll be having a look down in the pit lane with Joe Bradley, but also having a listen to what some of the drivers have got to say. KCMG, a fantastic addition to the entry list here with cars in a couple of classes. Let's go down to their TCR entry. Here's Bruce.
Henry Lee Jr., great to see such a KCMG representation here, the two Nissans, but you're interested in the TCR Honda, and in fact we've just seen it miss the pit stop here and drive past.
Well, actually, this is our very first time here in Dubai, and this is the first night session that we have encountered. So a little bit of chaos, but this is good to happen right now instead of having it happen in the race.
Exactly so, but you have 5 drivers, you've all got to go out and do night qualifying. How many laps do you have to do?
Basically, we're going to do very simple 2 laps just to get used to the lighting here, and maybe 1 or 2 drivers will drive a few more. But in principle, we're just going to get used to the ambience.
The ambience and the amount of darkness at the back. Enjoy your session, and we'll catch you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Jones down there in the pit lane. Nice to hear from some of the teams that we haven't spoken to there. That was the KCMG guys in the in the TCR category. Now, we spoke to this next team a little bit earlier on, and everything was going well. This is the Moutran family and outing. It's not all tickety-boo now, though, Joe Bradley.
Never a good sight to see a car on the high stands and legs and bodies coming from underneath it. Nabil Moutran, you're down to drive the 950 Porsche. However, at the moment, that car's going nowhere. What's the issue that these guys are addressing?
There's no issues at all, actually. We're just doing a service. It's all part of the plan. We've got 90 minutes to get through all 4 drivers. So we're just putting in a new clutch. It's all part of the plan, getting ready for tomorrow. Everything's according to plan. We had a great morning session. We had a great qualifying. The team's brilliant as always. All good.
That's great. So we get the clutch in for the race. We set the car up for the race. That's so the boys can get to bed early tonight instead of finishing and then having this to do into the small hours, making everybody fit and ready for the race tomorrow. Because tomorrow's a long day, isn't it?
Yeah, especially we're starting at 3 o'clock tomorrow, so it's an hour later than usual. So the plan is to get the work done as quickly as possible, sacrifice some seat time so the boys, the crew, we wouldn't go around if it wasn't for them. So they need to get a good night's sleep, finish up early. As soon as the checkered flag comes out, we're out of here and going home for bed.
Now, I just want to, while Seb's got the camera, Nabil, I just want to point out this reflective, this is a new regulation that all cars should carry this reflective badge, this kind of a stick-on thing. There's one at the rear of the car as well. From a driver's perspective, is this a good idea?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, we get a lot of, especially in the night where, you never know where somebody's coming from, or you may not see a car. If a car's lost a light, in the middle of a track, you're going to get a little bit of a reflection coming up. You're going to see somebody there. Yeah, it's a great idea. It's not going to blind you or anything like that. So a little bit more visibility on what's around you is always a good thing at night. And yeah, so it's all good.
Great stuff. You had my heart fluttering there as I walked past. Don't do that to me again, will you?
No, all good. We're all good. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Good stuff. Thanks, Nabil. Nabil Moutran there. Good to see the Moutran family back. It's their home race, and it seems right that the Moutrans are back.
Yeah, and with that Porsche again that we saw them with, a couple of seasons ago. Before that, they had been TCR runners. Johnny Palmer, good evening. He's our third voice in the booth tonight. This is evocative, isn't it? When you look out from our lofty position, we get the opportunity to look out, see the cars going down the back straight, all the refuse lorries and the tow trucks going down with the flashing yellow lights on, which I keep thinking are intervention vehicles in the background. It's the character of this racetrack. It comes to life for me in the darkness.
Certainly so, and it's quite punishing as well because of the length of darkness hours that we're due to have, a little over 13 hours. And this, for me, we were talking earlier on about this track kind of not really going anywhere, occupying a relatively small footprint, although it is 5.3 kilometres. At night time, I think that goes out of the window and you really do feel like you're on a journey. OK, you've also got headlights coming at you from all sorts of different angles because of the way this track is laid out, and that can affect visibility, but it is very dark out there, particularly over to from our perspective, the top left corner. If you imagine the track laid out in front of us, over on the oval circuit there, traditionally very gloomy indeed overnight, and you do get a little bit of light from passing traffic as well. But this is where the driver and the car become at one. And it can be pretty lonely out there.
I like driving in the dark, always have done, both in street cars and in racing cars. I've done a couple of 3 races now that have gone for some part of them into the darknis.
Is that just because you were so slow and everybody else had finished and you were carrying on?
That's right, Paul. Yeah. Absolutely right. And I have spoken to some drivers as well, and particularly on very demanding tracks, like, say, the Nordschleifer, and I've never raced there, daytime or darkness, but they say that the darkness can actually concentrate your mind because there's nothing extraneous around the edges to see. It's not quite like that here because there's such a lot of lighting around it. Maybe not lighting shining on the track, but you can see buildings in the distance, you can see downtown, you can see the hotels. You'll see the grandstand lights, etc., etc. Now, Paul's pointing into the distance.
Well, I was about to pick up on your point about it being dark, because you're kind of working out where the track goes as well, of course, when it's dark. Because as Johnny was just saying, we look out here and we look into the darkness. Some of the bits that we can see clearly because we can see the track and the illumination, but there are other bits where it is just pitch black, and all you can see in order to pick out where the track goes are the headlights of the cars. Now, what I was pointing at was a car that seemed to be on the exit of the corner going onto the back straight, going onto the track, but I wasn't quite sure whether it was a racing car, going back onto the track having left the road, or whether it was just a service vehicle going around on the outside. And I've got a feeling it was just a service vehicle going around the outside, because we had no indication of a yellow flag.
Nicky Pastorelli is doing double duty in two tremendously iconic cars. He's listed to drive the V8 Corvette C6 ZR1, but Joe Bradley's caught up with him now in the 24, which is a Porsche in Gulf oil colours.
I was just walking past the GBX Racing Garage where the number 24 Porsche is. In its, as you said, its very splendid livery in Gulf livery. And another Porsche on its high stance. So, however, wasn't caught out by this one this time. So I approached Nicky Pastorelli, who's just at the moment about to bolt in or assist his teammate Frederic Fatien getting in the car. And it was like, yeah, Nicky, what's happening? He went, nah, nothing really, just service. Since then, car now off the stands, cars on the bottom. So it seems that all of these teams are just going through a process of servicing the car. So I was almost caught out there, Nicky, by the car being worked on, but I take it that's just pretty standard stuff, just servicing.
Yeah, it's normal service. Some parts that needed to be changed before the race, but you need to run them in. So we do that in night practice, so it's according to plan.
What sort of parts are you talking about?
Drive shafts.
Right, is that right? You'll have to be run in.
We replace them and we run them in now, so we are okay for the race then.
Right. What exactly do you mean by running? I know what you mean, but some of the viewers might not exactly know. What does that term running in mean?
Basically, it means that you don't give them all the power, all the force. In the beginning, you takes about, let's say, 5 laps before you really push them.
And what about the curbs? We hear all the time that we hear some drivers use the curbs, some drivers stay off. How do you have to drive this Porsche with regards to curbs?
Well, the Porsche is very good over the curbs, but you know, for a 24-hour race, during the race you try to avoid them as much as you can, because that's never good for any car.
Now then, Nicky, you're doing double duty this weekend, aren't you? Are you down to drive the V8 Corvette as well?
No, we changed the plans. I was supposed to do it, but I'm only on the Porsche now.
Right. So were you able to? Well, did the regulations allow you to drive 2 cars?
Yeah.
Right. And is that a wise thing?
As long as you rest the minimum time after your last stint, then it's okay.
Are you disappointed not being in the Corvette as well?
No, this is enough.
Yeah,
race is long.
Let's not be too greedy.
Yeah. Thanks, Nicky.
I can drive slow enough to run anything in. So, you know, I'm just saying that any teams up and down the pit lane want to have a specialist runner inner, then,
good.
you know, they've not got to worry about me breaking anything, because I never drive fast enough for that. I think, you know.
It's a unique skill, that, in
motorsport. It's a bit like the Rolex 24, you know, if they need someone to drive around in a long safety car, I can do that.
Okay.
Very good. I mean, I am as good as the very best at driving behind a safety car at safety car speeds.
I'm sure everyone knows where to find you, John, for offers that will be warmly received this weekend.
Let's go back to Joe Bradley in the pit lane. Joe, what's going on?
I'll tell you what's going on. Hofer car, they're so crowded here in the Dubai pit lane. The Hofer car has had to pull their car in about 100 metres away from its pit garage. And the whole team with the pit board and everything came running up the pit lane and get out of the way. Just see if I can grab Kenneth before you take your helmet off and talk to me in a second. They've literally got 100 metres from their garage. Chantel Prince is now getting in the car. Kenneth Hire, that would have been very confusing for him. Kenneth, that was confusing for me. How confusing was it for you to have to bring the car all the way up here? Hang on, it's very busy tonight, very busy. So how confused was that, having to bring the car up there? Hang on, we're still in the way. Hang on. This is live TV, this is not recorded. We would cut this bit if it was recorded.
I don't know what happens. They just tell me to go a little bit further. I think they want to test something with the lights or something, but Why there? I don't know. I cannot.
I think it was because outside of your garages was very crowded.
Okay.
So we're crowded in the pit lane. Are we crowded out on the track also?
Yeah, it's every year. It's so crazy. It's so special race with all the traffic and yeah, not so easy because sometimes you cannot remember. You don't know the guys in the smaller or in the middle fast cars, so not to expect where they brake and all that stuff. So it's really special, and you have to be really, really careful.
Thanks, Kenneth. I'll leave you to get changed. Very interesting point, that, guys. During the daylight, you can identify cars by their livery and their colour and even their number. But during the night, all the car is on the track is just a blur of lights, and it's hard to tell who are the nutters out there.
They're all nutters out there in the best possible way. Paul?
It works both ways, though, doesn't it? Because not only do the fast cars have to worry about which slow car they're coming up to lap, but the slower ones just see a blaze of headlights behind them.
And that actually, I think, is harder, Paul.
Yeah.
If I'm honest. I noticed on the back window of the number 24 Porsche, they've got the whole of the back window blanked out with a reflective tape. And that's not because they're going to leave very expensive items on the back shelf and they don't want anybody to see them. That's to stop some of the glare of these very powerful headlights and LED light bars. It will still catch your attention and it'll still make you go, oh, where's he? And snap your head across.
And even that blanking, I mean, it's like having a curtain. You can still tell whether the lights are on behind the curtain.
Correct.
You know, whether the curtain's closed or not. So, you know, and you will have your attention drawn by someone flashing your lights, even if you've got the blanking out.
999 is on the circuit. This is the car that had the incident earlier on today. Knocked the rear wing off and the rear valance. It was just a grey colour earlier on. I think they've probably had that wrapped now. The black and white striped number 999 Porsche then back into the race. Johnny?
And good to see, because they've had to work very hard on that. We heard from E and Loggy a little earlier on. Dan has John Loggy on my entry list for some reason.
That's his first name.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't get his full name, though.
Yeah,
we do with some drivers, but anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to make a mental note of that. Driving with Adam Ballon, Adam Knight and Marcus Jewell.
I think it was Adam
Brits.
Ballon that dropped the car on his first or second lap, actually.
Yeah, and Adam has driven with Track Club before in their GT4 McLarens in British GT.
No, it wasn't Adam who dropped it, though, John.
Was it not?
No, he was the first one to get into the car after the problem.
So it was Marcus Jewell.
It was Marcus Jewell.
It was Marcus Jewell. My great apologies. Yes, you're absolutely right. As soon as you said that, I remembered I'd heard his name. I just couldn't remember why.
He was the first one in after it had been repaired.
Correct. Well, that car back out on the circuit at the moment, having to deal with some of that faster traffic that Paul was mentioning. And it's one of the AMG GTs. Looked like the 405, so another GT4 car.
And some of the traffic is going pretty quickly as well. I've lost a bet with myself, if you can lose bets with yourself, because Christian Engelhardt at the wheel of the number 63 Grasser Lamborghini has put in a sub 2 minute lap time.
Wow.
Because I bet myself that nobody would go under 2 minutes in this session, but Christian Engelhardt has done in the Grasser Lamborghini, did a 1:59.630 to be 1.3 seconds faster than anybody else. He's handed the car over now to Rolf in Eichen. So Rolf in Eichen now behind the wheel of the 63 Grasser Lamborghini. The number 2 Black Falcon Mercedes, Yelmer Berman took it out and did second fastest time of 2 minutes 0.945. But now Adam Christodoulou is in it. So Adam, I don't think he drove the car he certainly didn't drive the car very much through any of the pre-practice sessions. He drove it on Wednesday in the optional test, having only arrived here on Tuesday morning. Having told me on Monday that he wasn't coming, but rather a late deal was done. Adam Christodoulou is here, and
rather a late deal was done. It was done on Tuesday afternoon, and he was on his way to the airport, booking the flight in the taxi on the way to it.
Exactly. So great to have Adam here, and that does mean, I mean, realistically speaking, that is a very, very strong driver lineup now at the number 2 Black Falcon Mercedes.
It wasn't actually, I mean, it's not as if it was rubbish before Adam joined it.
Well, no, but what it's done is it's put 2 pro standard drivers into the car, because let me just pull up the entry list that I had. So it was down to have Jelmer Berman as the only pro driver in there, with Saud Al-Faisal being the AM driver. Abdulaziz Al-Faisal is a semi-pro, Hubert Haupt is a semi-pro, and the regulations allow the pro driver to do up to 12 hours. Now, you're allowed to have 2 drivers, and then you can split that 12 hours between the 2 of you. So it would have been quite a tall order for Jelmer to have to do 12 hours out of the 24. So Adam and Jelmer can now split that between the 2 of them. And Saud Al-Faisal, as the AM driver, only has to do 2 hours. So he may do a little bit more than that, but I don't expect him to do that much more than that. And then, as I say, it'll give Adam and Jelmer the chance to do the lion's share of the driving through the night.
And let's not forget that the maximum that you can be in a car in one go, although you may come into the pits to refuel in the middle of this, is 2 hours.
2 hours is the maximum driving time in a single stint. So what I was talking about in terms of doing 12 hours is the total driving time over the course of the race. And that, I won't explain it to you at the moment, but it is different depending which class you're in and what standard of driver you are. In order to score points, every driver must do at least 2 hours. But apart from that, as I say, it's very flexible depending which class you're in, and that's effectively how A6 AM and A6 Pro is separated.
Let's go down to the pits. One of the stories we promised we'd follow up for you is the 633 Lotus. This is the green car, in homage to the Lotus 25 from the early 1960s. They had some kind of engine problem earlier on. Bruce Jones is down with the Italian team running the very British cars with the Japanese supercharged engine. Bruce, what's the news?
I have Marco Fumagalli. Now tell me, there have been some engine problems for the Lotuses. Is all okay?
Yeah, now it's all okay. We have in the qualify a problem for the pump and supply fuel pump. Okay, now it's okay. The engine is good. The only problem that I have now, because it's my first time here, that is the dark, the night. The lights are okay, but it's not very good for me and for all other cars. I think that is the same problem. That there is the turn number 5 that is black. It's like a switch off the light.
So right now you just have to stay good, stay on the track.
Yeah, yes. I think that for the race I have to stay outside of the wall. Yeah, in the track.
Exactly. Great to have the 2 Lotuses. Marco, thank you.
Thank you a lot.
Charles Putman has just gotten out of the number 85. And I've got to get this into my head this season. The CP Racing Mercedes. Your name now above the door, Charles. Does that mean you get involved more with the logistics and operations, or can you just focus on being a driver as ever?
Well, I can still focus just on being a driver, but really it's just more of a technical change than anything. We wanted to be the entrance so we could fly the American flag on our entry sheet, and so a minor change there. And then we did shift logistics backup help, and kept a few of the same guys, but added some really good guys. We just thought we'd have a really nice team this way and give it a try.
Well, you climbed the mountain last year, Charles. You won the mountain last year. We seem to be defending it almost immediately. How do you lift yourself and motivate yourself towards defending the championship? We're starting again, and it's very intense when you're at the sharp end like you guys.
Oh yeah, it comes on really quick. You don't have time to rest on it, but that's normal in competition. Nobody does. Last year is going to be a difficult challenge to duplicate or better. That's part of why we changed our method of operation of what we're doing. We're trying to make some changes to become more competitive, because we know this year is going to be tougher than last year. And as returning champions, we want to make a good showing, but it's going to be really hard to duplicate the success we had last year. We had a lot of luck, a lot of success, but we're going to give it a try.
And on reflection from last year, Charles, you came into the season, brand new car, completely different, the MG Mercedes GT, completely different to the Porsche you guys had campaigned, I should say. Did it surprise you how well the season went? On reflection, that is.
On reflection, yeah, we were definitely surprised. We said, well, we know it's going to be difficult, a new car, top class car, lot to learn. It'll be a development year. And we sort of started out that way with not too good of a finish here at Dubai, but it turned around pretty quickly, and then we said, you know, we can do this. We can hang with this group, and we sort of did.
I was once told a saying when I started racing, first you've got to learn how to lose to learn how to win. And that's very true in my case. But what was the secret to last year? If there is anything, can you pinpoint how the championship came to you?
Well, we've done our share of the losing too, so I think we've learned a lot. But yeah, we came into this, even though it was a new car to us, we knew the series, we knew the directors, we knew the competitors. We've been around with them a lot. So it was a new car, but a lot was familiar. And like you say, we paid our dues in the past. So in retrospect, it wasn't as big of a step as we thought it was in change. Not to say there weren't challenges, because there were plenty. But we felt like we were capable of dealing with them. And I think luck just played out a little bit more in our favor than we could have expected.
And Charles, I've got to ask you this. When you were awarded the championship, I think I said to you guys, hey, you're carrying the #1 next year. And it was Nathan who said, no way, we're keeping the 85 going. I asked Joe the other day what the answer to that was, and he didn't know. What's the secret? Why the 85? What's the big deal?
I knew that was going to be one of the first questions, but you know, actually it's just good old racer superstition. I've always kind of wanted to run the #1 plate, and you know, that's something you chase and you pursue. Looks great in your dreams, but you know, when we got there, we sort of sat down as drivers, and you know, a bunch of guys that I've been with a long time sort of said, you know, we're superstitious. We just don't want to change anything we don't have to change. Can we keep the same number? So yeah, we sort of made a group decision, and basically on scientific superstition, we decided to stay with the 85.
I'm with you all the way on that one, Charles. Good luck for this weekend, and also good luck for the rest of the defense of the championship. I'm sure you guys know what to do.
Well, thank you. We appreciate those wishes of luck, because I'll tell you, anybody that wins this cannot tell you they did it alone. It takes really good preparation, a lot of focus and effort, and then you still need that little bit of grace from the racing gods to do it.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you. We'll be seeing you.
Thanks, Charles. Charles Putman there, out of the 85 CP Racing Mercedes.
And the only reason they could have had the #1, and there's only one car who's allowed the #1 in this championship, because they were the team's champions overall for last year. They decided not to. No one else is allowed to use it, and that won't then be allocated this year until we know for next year who has the opportunity to take it.
Yeah, what puzzles me is what would have happened had two different teams won the Champion of the Continents and the Championship of Europe, because there are two different championships.
That's a good point.
Which happen to have both been won by Pro Sport Performance, Charles Putnam's team. But quite what they would have done under those circumstances, I don't know. They would have come to a conclusion sensibly, I'm sure.
Well, we've had that in the VLN, didn't we, with drivers' champions?
Yeah.
With two guys who won the championship a couple of seasons ago.
Won it together.
They won it together and then didn't drive together the next season, Johnny.
That was Michael Schrei was one of them. And he won the championship the following year, so he took the #1 the following year. So they kind of both got.
So they both got a season of having #1.
#1 on the side of the car. Sorry, Johnny.
No.
You were going to add to that.
But it tends to be about teams rather than drivers, doesn't it? As in the #1, because in Formula One, for example, before we got to the point where there are set numbers, that always used to stay with the team and not with the driver, didn't it?
No, it went with the driver. That was the whole point.
Well, not in the...
Yeah.
Okay.
And the driver took the #1.
For the team's championship, I mean, though. For the team's championship, you would then have the cars within that team, 1 and 2. Or they got the pick.
Yes. No,
because we were talking about team's championship.
Became #1.
Yes.
His teammate became #2.
Yes.
And
the next team in the championship could be 3 and 4.
When I first started watching, 3 and 4 just remained as they were the previous year. And what happened was that 1 and 2 would swap with 27 and 28.
Yes.
27 and 28 were Ferrari or Williams, and 1 and 2 would swap with them, and they'd then swap back again.
You can still have #1 in Formula One as a world champion. It's your choice to take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is your choice to take it.
I wanted to draw attention to 2 cars we've not yet seen in this session, and we've had half an hour of the 90 minutes, so it's an opportune moment to just bring to attention 2 cars that we've not yet seen, possibly although not necessarily, teams with problems. Both TCR cars, one is the number 129, which is the Baz Kooten entered Finnish car, the LMS entry, which Antti Buuri is one of the drivers of. That's the car he shares with Ollie Kangas. And the other one is number 101, the Red Camel team, the Red Camel Jordans.nl team, Ivo Breukers and his team of Happy Dutchmen, including Henry Littig. But anyway, neither of those cars have been out yet, and that's a slight cause for concern from two what would normally be very reliable and good teams to watch.
And we'll come back with the requirements for drivers in just a few moments' time after we've heard from the pit lane, live here in Dubai for the opening round of the Hankook 24-hour series for 2019. Here's Bruce Jones.
Philip House, it's dark after dark, so to speak, here at Dubai, but I've came down to look at your Golf, the JW Bird Motorsport Golf, in the complete dark. You've parked it beyond the final garage. I know it's really hectic in the pit lane. I can hardly make it out. Super dark down here.
It's hard to find space here, but we'd just like to be out of the way so we can concentrate on our own thing at this point. It's the first time I've been here, especially in the dark. I've done 2CV 24 hours, I've done all sorts of random things, but this is a fish. Going out there, I didn't expect it to be so dark, turn 1, 2, 3. I'm just getting mugged by the GT3 cars first time out. It was an eye-opener anyway, but yeah, once you settle into it, it's like anything, you know your lines, you know the car well, it's you get into a groove and it's fine.
But it does knock your confidence when all the marking points, the braking points, the turning points you've built up in your short first visit here have disappeared.
Yes, it's a bit different, and my only other time for still was working for Bentley here, so it's very different again in road cars doing nice things, but yeah, a few laps in, you start to get a rhythm up, and you start picking different points out, and it was good fun in the end.
Okay, braking points. One of the things here, the edge of the track is a very long way from the side of the track. Does that really hinder the points you try and find?
Yeah, I mean, all about feel. I've been racing for 18 years, and it's generally, I've got some points, but most of it's just how you feel in the car, and those points have definitely come back 20 metres initially, but you start building back up, get that confidence with the car. The car's fantastic. These TCR cars now are just so real easy to drive at a comfortable pace that it's not too much of a problem. The biggest problem for us is the GT3 cars that are just so fast. I'm trying to not ruin their race, but equally keeping your pace going.
Well, that summed it all up. You're smiling. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bruce Jones down in the pit lane, out on the circuit, the number 701. And that car with a bright red number 2 on the side, telling me that that's second in its part of the race, and that's the Vortex, running in SPX. And this is the Vortex-looking Vortex, which is, if that makes any sense, it's not styled by that, Johnny. I mean, it's not styled after any other car, which some of the Vortex down through the years have had a number of styling cues, a bit like the Mark cars have had a number of different body styles down through the years. But this Vortex is the Vortex 1.0, they call it, and it's a generic sports car. It looks, actually, I think that is a very good shape of car.
Yeah, the 1.0, no reference at all to the cubic capacity of that machine, because it's got a 6.2 litre V8 in it, and you can hear that coming as well. 2 vortices this weekend, because there's the Sirocco look-alike, and I think we can call that a Sirocco, unlike the Mark cars that apparently looks like something else, but it's not a VW Sirocco, it's a Vortex Sirocco, and it runs in another class, in SP3 this weekend. And that, all the SP3s have 3-digit numbers starting with 3, which is very useful when I'm trying to remember which car is in which class at 3 in the morning, frankly. So the Sirocco GC10, now we used to have a GC automobile that looked a bit like a BMW touring car. That's long gone now. But I quite like the Sirocco. I mean, I like the look of the Sirocco road car to carry it on into silhouette form in a Vortex. Very nice indeed.
Sirocco with a good history in endurance racing. I've got a feeling that was one of the cars that the new shape was debuted at the Nürburgring before the straight car came out, Johnny, a few years ago.
At least 2 of them used to lead the 3rd group, I seem to remember, at the 24 hours, And
just following up your numbers thing, 1 to 99 A6, 100 to 199 TCR. Generally speaking, there's a couple of outliers, but work with me on this. 200 to 299 SP2, 300 to 399 SP3, 400 to 499 GT4, 500 to 599 Porsche Cayman GT4 Trophy. That's something I'm interested in all of a sudden. 600 to 6, I didn't realise that was a class. 600 to 659 A3, 660 to 699 A2, although we've not got any of those here.
Correct.
Of course, the engines are too small. 700 to 799 SPX, 800 to 899 Cup 1, 900 to 999 is the 991 Cup class. As I say, there's a couple of outliers in that, but that's the general rule of thumb for the season.
But we don't have any of the Porsche Cayman GT4 Cup cars either, so the one that you're interested in.
That's why we hadn't spoken about them. But I didn't realise there was what I should have said. I didn't realise there was going to be a Cup class for Caymans there. That's very interesting.
Yes,
that's piqued my interest.
Introduced at some point during last season.
Yeah.
Can't quite remember at which race, but it wasn't there at the beginning of the season, and it appeared halfway through the season.
And with the new Cayman coming out, the new 718 Cayman MR Club Sport, then there might be a few more of the 981s hanging around that come onto the pre-loved racing car market.com. And I would say with a 3.8 flat 6 engine and the kind of reliability that you normally get from a Porsche, that might not be the worst idea to grab one of those, Johnny, and come racing. We've said many times before, at this race, old Porsche Cup cars are a very cost-effective way to go endurance racing.
Yes, and there's a choice of a few classes that you can actually go into as well. It doesn't have to be the 991 class. Very tight indeed there for one of the Nissan GT4s as it came out of, I think that was turn 7, and nearly had some door-handle-to-door handle contact. Also make the point that we haven't got any SP2 cars anymore because they've been swallowed up into SPX. One of the 2 TCR Volkswagen Golfs has come to a grinding halt. I'm not sure whether that's the sequential or the DSG gearbox version.
I think it's the TSG, and I think that's the leader in class at the moment.
It is the DSG. It's the Autorama Motorsport by Wolf Power Racing, Paul.
Yeah, it's Fabian Dantz at the wheel of it at the moment.
Right at the entrance to the pit lane.
Leading TCR, but not TCE. So the TCE division leader is the Colin White engineering run Ginetta.
I fear we may be seeing that quite a lot. That's what I say. I fear. I think we'll be seeing that quite a lot. This is the 112 Volkswagen Golf TCR, parked up just on the entrance to the pit lane. Right-hand indicator, which is one of those sequential indicators that spreads along. That is blinking in the darkness there. And whilst we wait to find out whether that needs a little helping hand, let's go to Bruce Jones down in the pit lane as we're live from the Dubai Autodrome.
Ricardo Fella, it already seems quite a few years since you made your debut here in Dubai, but here you are at a really good entry, the Muka Motorsport Audi, great lineup of drivers. Is all going well?
Yeah, perfect at the moment.
Is that a worry?
No, it's all fine, but the race didn't even start, so yeah, we don't know, but we will see.
Now, what's the feeling of the car? It seems the Audis look right at the sharp end at the moment. They seem really good for pace here at Dubai.
Yeah, I think the Audi likes the track, so would be an interesting race. But yeah, let's see now the night practice, and then tomorrow at 3 the start is.
And now we've just got the start of a Code 60. I know you're due in the car, so I'll leave you to go and put your helmet on.
Thank you.
And whilst we have a little bit of thinking time in the quiet here, it is very, very noisy. We've all got headsets with microphones up here, but even with those on, it's still very, very noisy up here. Let's have a quick review of the times, Paul. They count for naught in terms of grid, but there'll be a few bragging rights tonight back at hotels, and also the teams and drivers want to know where they stand in the hierarchy.
And I think as well, if you're going to test the car at night, you've got to drive it properly. So, you know, it does give, as you say, a good idea of the hierarchy. It's the 63 Grasser Racing Lamborghini, which is fastest, and that's still courtesy of the time that Christian Engelhardt set very early on in the session, 1:59.630, the only time we've had under 2 minutes. And I don't think we've actually mentioned the car that's in second place, because Josh Burden in the second of the KCMG Nissans has actually set second fastest time at 2 minutes 0.523. So the car now in the hands of Tsujio Matsuda, but the car, as I say, the time set earlier on in the session by Josh Burden. The third fastest car is the number 2 Black Falcon Mercedes, which Jelmer Berman started out with and did 5 laps. Adam Christodoulou, as I mentioned, took over and got within, did virtually the same time. Jelmer Berman did a 2 minute 0.945. Christodoulou got in and did a 2 minute 0.977. So you can have an idea of what that car's race pace might be. Saad Al Faisal is now in the car. And he will be bringing it into the pits, I would guess, to hand over to another driver. That's third fastest. Fourth fastest is number 11, the Bohemia Energy Racing with Scuderia Praha Ferrari. Has just done a 2 minutes 1.045 Malicelli. And that's the fastest lap for that car. Yuri Pisaric has already been out in it, but they've only got 3 drivers to qualify, so they can be looking forward to an early night probably. That's fourth. Fifth fastest is the second of the Black Falcon cars, the Abu Dhabi Racing with Black Falcon entered car, which Manuel Metzger is currently driving, although he hasn't gone as quickly as Luca Stoltz went earlier on. It was Luca who set the time to be 5th fastest, and then 6th fastest, a Mercedes that we've not talked about yet, the number 19 MP Motorsport entered Mercedes, and that is currently in the hands of Henrik de Jong, although Daniel de Jong was the driver who set the time, and Bert de Hoyst has also driven the car, so they've actually had 3 drivers cycling through that car already. And that's the 6th fastest car. They're all A6 Pro cars. The top 5 are all A6 Pro cars. The top A6 AM car is that MP Motorsport Mercedes, car number 19. So it is currently leading its class. SPX is being led by the 710 Lippert Motorsport Lamborghini. The 991 class being led by the 980 MRS, one of the many MRS GT Racing Porsche 991s. Wolfgang Triller currently the driver of that one. And TCE, as I've already said, being led by the Ginetta of Colin White Engineering. TCR being led by the car which has now made it back to the pits on the back of the tow truck. That was the car 112, but still no sign. Just check, see whether that's been out yet. In fact, now both Ivo Broikers in the 101 and Ollie Kangas in the 129 are on outlap, so maybe they were just waiting for a code 60 to come out, but waiting for some 40 minutes of the session to elapse before they came out onto the track seems a little strange, but I'm sure one of our pit crew will have some information on that for us and let us know why those 2 cars were rather late on parade.
Thank you, Paul. Excellent stuff. Code 60 going on for the recovery of that VW Golf. Been going on a wee while, and there's, in fact, some other issues out on the circuit, because I can see cars at turn 6, a number of cars at turn 6.
I wonder if this is the nighttime exercise which has been prompted by having to recover that Golf, John. Because normally they would have an exercise at some point.
That is true. So they've done the whole thing with intervention as well. Gives us an opportunity to get back down to the pit lane and talk to some more of the teams and drivers. The Hungarian team have a lot of followers, and we've had a lot of tweets on RSL_studio to hear from them. So let's go back down to the garage of Zengu Motorsport, and here is Bruce Jones.
Gabor Kismati-Lechner, great to have a Hungarian team, 5 Hungarian drivers for Zengu Motorsport in the TCR class, in the Seat. Great place to come racing.
Yeah, we really like Dubai, so this is our 7th time here in Dubai. It was fantastic. During the night, a free practice, absolutely fantastic. I liked it. That was a real race simulation, so everybody wanted to be fast. On the other hand, a mix of professional and amateur drivers is always difficult, knowing the fact that our class, the TCR class, is the slowest class in this race, we have to check every corner the mirror. It was fantastic. I did a very good lap, so I was happy with that lap. We tried a real race simulation, so I pushed like the hell. It was fantastic.
Now, how many of your drivers is this their first visit?
One of our drivers is first time in Dubai. All the others are seventh time.
Wow, good stuff. Keep coming back. Your car looks fantastic with the bright green and the black, so good to have you here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Garbo.
So the opportunity to do some simulated race pit stops thanks to Zengyu Motorsport and to Bruce Jones down there. Truly an international field here with motor racing enthusiasts, drivers and teams from right across Europe and further afield. Now, if this was the race at this time tomorrow, Johnny, and you came in under a code 60, of course, you'd only be allowed to take half your fuel allowance, but that fuel wouldn't go in the pit lane.
No, because all the cars, as is traditional with Creventic promoted 24H series racing, the fueling's done in a safe area, effectively after the pit lane. So you don't rejoin the track, you turn 90-degree right and into the fuel station where that fuel can be taken on board. It's pumped in via sort of hand trigger pumps you find in your local supermarket. Some team members should hopefully be there to greet you, guide you into the vacant bay, and if not, if there isn't a vacant bay, it's a question of just sitting there and waiting. But that's where good team management comes into the equation and getting called in at the optimum moment. Of course, you don't get to choose when there's a code 60 though, so it is a bit of a compromise in that respect.
I found it quite frustrating in some respects, but also very useful just to get yourself calmed back down. You get the call that you're ready to get into, it's your turn next. Normally between 5 and 10 laps away, so that could be as much as, 10, 15 minutes away. So you run round, find all your bits, put your balaclava on, put your helmet on, then remember that you haven't put your radio earplugs in, so you have to take them off again and put them back on, and have a bit of a stretch, get everything right, make sure that all the bits of your kit are together and you've fastened up everything, and then you're waiting, and then it all goes mad because the car comes in, you're helping the other driver out, you're jumping in, you're plugging your helmet in, you're getting the stuff on, get the two nets around you, change your driver ID, pull the seat up to where you want to be before they make sure you do that before they put the straps on, otherwise you can't pull it forward. You have to unfasten the straps again and all that. Right, and ready, first gear, right, fire it up, go. Stay on the speed limit, into pit lane, into fuel. Walking pace, and then you stop and turn the engine off.
It's not just a massive anticlimax, though. I would imagine that's like getting
huge.
I remember as a kid, used to get a battery-powered toy on Christmas Day, and then my parents had to discover there weren't any batteries in it, so you'd have to wait then till the shops to open on the 27th to actually use the thing. That sort of disappointment levels, whereby you get in the car, you're all revved up, and then, oh no, we've got to get for fuel for a few minutes.
It was the first time, and then I learned to use that to just bring yourself down, have a few more breaths, pull the straps down a bit tighter because you always settle yourself in a bit, check everything around you, make sure the radio was at the right level and it wasn't blasting you out or you couldn't hear the team manager whilst the fuel, because it takes a long time for the fuel to go in. It takes 3 or 4 minutes, and you're sitting there just watching the guy at the front with his hand up and watching who's around you. Oh, they're in at the same time as me, I'll be racing with them on the track. That's fun, okay. Fine, yeah, that's fantastic, yeah, great. And then you go out, and then, of course, as soon as you come off your pit lane speed limiter, or in the case of the car I was driving, you change from first to second, because that's how we had the limiter set, then all hell breaks loose again, and you're flat out again straight away. I was very lucky in my first stint, actually, that I came out, we brought the car in just before a code 60 was called, and therefore got full fuel, but I came out into about 3/4 of a lap of code 60. So I had even more time to just settle myself in, have a look around, where am I going to, coming off that, looking up when is it going to go green? When's it going to go green? So you have to use it, I think. But you're right, it is a tremendous anticlimax. Let's go down to the pit lane, and here is Bruce Jones.
One of the beauties of the Dubai 24 Hours is drivers of so many nationalities. And I've just found Frederick Lester, Swedish racing driver, 3 other nationalities out of the other 3 drivers in the Beza Group BMW. You've got Thomas Pekar from the Czech Republic, Franjo Krovac from Croatia, and Thomas Tekart from Germany. It's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very nice thing. I really enjoy it. It's motorsport has a tendency to bring people together, and that's why so many people like it, I guess. And I mean, with 30 nationalities overall, I think driving this race, it's really nice, and hopefully the communication works everywhere.
Yeah, and in fact, I think if all the classes, I think GT4, with about 13 cars here, has the most nationalities in the group. But you're with Franjo Kovac, who's been such a supporter of this event. He used to come here with a Mini, and each year he gets a faster car. He must be a really inspirational guy to be with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've done quite a lot of Creventic races, and I've done every race together with Franjo, actually. So I've been here 5 times with the Mini in Dubai, and we've won the class a few times. And Franjo is just a super happy guy, and he loves racing, and it's super fun to be here together with him.
Thank you very much for talking to us. Joe.
We're live for the 2019 Hankook Dubai 24 Hours. It's nighttime, it's dark, it's not exactly cold, but it is chillier. And if you look at the history of the Dubai 24 Hours, it's arguable that a name has become synonymous with this race, and that's one Abdulaziz Al Faisal. Abdul, you come into this race once again in the number 2 Black Falcon Mercedes, but that brings a pressure because everybody looks at you guys and thinks you're going to win this race. We know it's not that easy.
Well, I'm happy to be back, and it's been happening this way for the past 10 years, I guess. So that's a good thing that we're always here to compete for the win, and hopefully we have put a good show and we have a good race.
And in those 10 years, has the race changed in character? I mentioned the history there. We're growing a big history here in Dubai for this race. What changes have you seen and noticed?
I mean, definitely the race, grew in terms of participation. It grew in terms of the level of the drivers coming in. I remember in the first early races, there weren't any GT3 cars or on that level of racing at the time. And then GT3 cars came in. And, every year you see more and more big names come into the race and more drivers come into the race. So every year it gets better and better, and that's what we look for.
So what's the secret of winning? Is it a race you can come and can you plan to win this? Right, we're going to win the Dubai 24 Hours.
I won the first time after I think it was 10 years of trying, and this is my 11th year, 12th year, sorry. So it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of luck as well. But you have to create that luck. You have to come prepared. You have to come with a good team. You have to come with good teammates. And if you put the time and effort into the race, then luckily you win it.
And Abdul, I've got to say, the thing I've noticed in the Middle East, the growth of motorsport at the moment, is really, it's kind of a starburst. How big is that race, has this race been in that growth in the Middle East?
This race started everything, I think. After the Formula 1 in Bahrain, and then this race came here, and we started coming to this race to race, and especially for us locals that we can compete in. And honestly, every year we look forward to this race, and every year fans and family come to attend this race. It became like a benchmark that we have to start the year with. And it's good because it's in the beginning of the year, and then everyone's off to go and race wherever in the world. But we start with Dubai always, so it's a good thing.
And honestly, we haven't rehearsed this, but that's a beautiful segue into me asking my next question, which is what has the rest of 2019 got in store for you?
It's still too early to decide, but most likely we'll be racing again with Black Falcon in the Blancpain Championship, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Thanks, Abdul. Always great to see you and great to have you here. No pressure this weekend. Go and enjoy it.
Abdulaziz Al Faisal for Black Falcon. And just a great character. Every time that we've seen him here, every time we've seen him racing elsewhere, always has a smile on his face. The absolute perfect illustration is triumph and disaster. Treat both of those imposters just the same. He smiles when it's going well, he smiles when it's going badly, and he is a fantastic role model for drivers from this area, Johnny.
Yeah, and he said it was his 12th year. It is, but he actually debuted in 2007, so I make this his 13th race. And when you consider it's a 14-year history, he's only missed one. That was the very first one in 2006, but was here in 07 with Paul Harvey, Paul Spooner, and with Khaled bin Sultan Al Faisal, and they were racing in an A3 Mini Motorsport Mini, so quite a step up, isn't it, in a period of 12 years to a Mercedes AMG and a double winner now in this great event.
And Bruce recognised the name of Paul Spooner there that was mentioned straight away.
Yeah, Paul came out to say hello. He lives in Austria, but he spent an awful lot of years coaching the Al Faisal brothers. So he's here this weekend. He popped out. He said, I've come from huge snow drifts, lives just outside on the Geisberg, just outside Salzburg. Managed to get to the airport. Obviously, no snow here, but it's great to have that sort of continuity with the Al Faisals. And he loves this race too, albeit now from the sidelines.
Yeah, no snow here, of course. The groundsman is very particular about that. 35 minutes to go. You're live with Sound and Vision together. RS1, one of 3 full-time audio channels from the Radio Show Limited network of programming, and also in Sound and Vision with our colleagues Nils Weiswein-Eins providing the facilities once again. And welcome to the new year of racing with Creventic and the Hankook 24-hour series, starting here at Dubai and running right through till November at COTA, just outside Austin in Texas. Paul Truswell is watching the times.
Yes, you're saying, John, still quite a long time still to go. Still just over half an hour. Still quite a lot of work to be done as well. Just seeing on the screen there, the number 63 Grasser Racing Lamborghini, back in the hands, according to the screen, of Christian Engelhardt. Now, Mirko Bortolotti has driven it. Rolf Ineichen has driven it. Christian Engelhardt started driving it, so he's back into it. But we haven't seen Mark Ineichen in the car, nor have we seen... No, it's only a 4-driver lineup. So, yeah, so Mark Ineichen is the missing driver, still has his 2 laps to do. So just wonder whether Christian Engelhardt wants to just check some of the feedback, perhaps, that Mirko Bortolotti has given before they hand the car over to Mark Ineichen to allow him to do his qualifying laps. The second place car has now got Katsumasa Chio behind the wheel. Winner at Bathurst, I remember, a couple of seasons ago. With a splendid...
And going back there this year.
Is he? Again in a Nissan, no doubt?
No.
Oh, well,
is he not?
the big story is that there is a Nissan going back there.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And I thought it was Chio.
Yes, you're right, it is.
And anyway, so Chio not actually... although he may not have got a chance to go quickly because of the code 60. May have come in just at the end of it, but he's now at the wheel. But again, only 3 drivers have driven that car. Best of them so far, Black Falcon, the number 2 car. We heard from Abdulaziz, he's in the number 3, but the number 2 car has got 4 of its 5 drivers already qualified. So they're managing, but as I say, quite a few of them still with work to do in this final half hour.
James Counter also noticing on the entry list, he says, how did I miss Tsugo Matsuda when I was skimming through the entry list? Wow, very excited to see how that car goes. He says, I am a bit of a Super GT fan. Waylands, who's from the Antipodes, says, any Aussie or Kiwi drivers or teams running? Asking for a friend who's too slack to check the entry list. Yes, very good.
Well, lots of them, I think, is the short answer.
Yeah, and Josh Barrett posed a question that perhaps somebody listening in could tweet back to us on at RSL_studio. What's the oldest car racing in Dubai this year? Is it the Corvette? I thought about that, and I think it's probably one of the BMW M3s. It might even
be Kurt
Oyser's car.
Yeah. I instinctively leapt to the same conclusion, John. It might take a run through just to see whether there are any other takers. Not quite sure how old the Vortex is.
Actually, that's a good point as well. Because, it looks futuristic.
It's a bit like Cromwell's axe, isn't it? That has been through several variations, but the Vortex is quite an old piece of kit now.
Who's in the 63?
No, this is Christian Engelhardt.
He made
went out.
Very late decision to come in and cross right across the cross-hatching into the pit lane, like somebody who was missed their motorway turn-off and went, oh, junction 64, I need to be over there right now. And
Or Nick Damon driving us from the hotel to the circuit. But
he's only using 15% of his brain when he does that.
Exactly. The point with Engelhardt making that entrance into the pit lane is exactly what I was saying a moment ago. He's got into the car out of sequence, and I suspect it's to check the feedback that Mirko Bortolotti has given him, and they'll now be putting Marky Eichen into the car. Because, as I say, Christian has had his go and would seem to be having a second go behind the wheel, slightly unusually. Never really got to the bottom of why Red Camel was so late coming out. Quite sure if Bruce or
that's a good point.
Joe are going to be able to find that out, but they are now out, as is also the LMS Baz Kooten Audi, having again been rather late coming out.
Just to finish up the story about the Japanese drivers here and then going to the Liquid Moly Bathurst 12 hours at the end of January, beginning of February. Sugio Matsuda is the most successful GT500 driver of all time, RJ O'Connell reminds me. And he'll be at Bathurst in February as well as Chio. So that's good news. Can't wait for that. Looking forward to it.
You did mention it before.
Did I? Oh.
Yes, you did. A few times, I think.
One of two visits for me to Bathurst this year again, because I'm back out for the Easter race, the 6-hour race, and still trying to get a drive there in one of the support races. I can't drive in the 6 hours because I've got TV duties for Fox down there.
You're also one of two people sitting next to me who are going.
Yeah, sorry about that, Paul.
To the 12 hours?
To the 12 hours, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Johnny's staying out there for 6 months or something.
Pretty much, yeah. I'll be back for Sebring if you need me for that one.
Oh, really? All right. So
conveniently,
he's decided he'll be back in early March. But you're staying out there so you can go and see the Adelaide 500,
the opening Supercar Championship race.
Virgin Australia Supercars, yeah.
Yes, which used to be known by a sponsor name, but it's simply now the Adelaide 500. Yeah, around the streets.
Have you got your creds for that?
In progress.
Right, I was going to say because that can be sorted.
Indeed.
Remember who we're working for. Remember who we're working for at Bathurst.
Yes, of course.
Right.
So we'll get it nailed then.
That'll be nailed
that weekend.
Mate. Yes, absolutely right.
I'm reading about these Nissans that are going to Bathurst and the KCMG. So I just wonder whether they're going to be these exact chassis. Yeah.
You'd think that would make sense, wouldn't you? Because
really,
you're halfway there. And
precisely.
This is a nice shakedown for them, and then you send them there, rebuild them, and race them later on in the month or next month.
And driver lineup looks very similar as well. One of the cars, well, we don't know necessarily who's going to be in which car yet, but Ollie Jarvis, Eduardo Liberato, Sugio Matsuda, who've been talking about, Alessandro Imperatori, and Josh Burden, they're all in action this weekend. Well, certainly 4 of the 5 are. So
Ollie Jarvis, I don't know how many more are doing all of them, but I think we decided there was 8 drivers who'd come down from the test at the Raw.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many are doing the Raw here, Rolex 24 and Bathurst.
On to Bathurst.
But Ollie Jarvis is. So start the list with that one, dear listener and viewer.
Yeah.
Ollie and I have been trading a few messages and phone calls. He was asking advice about flights, and as he knows, I book all the flights for our lot. Just trying to help him out with some travel information. Hindhoff's Motorsport Travel, Hindhoff's Track Tours.
Excellent stuff. I was just thinking back to doing it in days of yore when a lot of travel to motor races had to be done by sea, and of course doing that kind of program just wouldn't have been possible.
No.
Just
that's why some of the series schedules have to be looked at very carefully. Creventic are actually pretty smart about setting their race calendar a long way ahead so that they can plan the logistics so that you don't have to fly cars places. You can put them on the open water and get them backwards and forwards. But we've seen even with big teams like Bentley and some of the Ferrari teams going to Bathurst. Bentley had a problem last year, didn't they, Johnny? They were rather worried that they weren't going to get their cars there, and there was some issues with bad weather as the cars were coming down literally halfway around the world by boat.
Yes. Yes, and some last-minute work taking place on those cars ahead of...
Bentley back at the mountain as well with the new car for the first time. Yeah.
That should be great.
Off-track excursion for the car that Paul was waiting to see out there, the Jordan's Red Camel.NL, just, I think, having gone out the pits and just heading out onto the back straight at the moment, but no harm, no foul, just a little drop there as we go down in the pit lane and say good evening to Derek Pierce, who is with Joe Bradley.
It's not the first time I've patted this guy in the back and found his back to be a soggy mess, but because he's just gotten out of the Mercedes. Derek, it's a GT4 Mercedes. It's not your normal chariot. What's it like out there?
As you would expect, it's completely pandemonium. After the Code 60, it was just mayhem. You wouldn't think it was nighttime practice. It's like the last hour of the 24-hour race is just mayhem. So. But yeah, track's good. Never been here before, so yeah, I'm delighted. It's really good.
Now, you usually compete in the Blancman Series in a Bentley, a GT3 spec car. You're in a GT4 spec car. Is there a massive difference?
Yes, there's a massive difference. I'd never driven this car. I've never driven the GT4 before. So yesterday when I came out the last thing I drove was a Bentley into this GT4. It took a good half dozen laps to find that I was asking an awful lot of the car, just step it back, and then go forward. And we're on the pace. The team's done a great job with the car.
Derek, you're the ideal person to ask this question. There's speculation, there's talk, there's debate, call it what you want. That GT3, the level that GT3 cars are now, are just basically too quick for gentleman drivers. Now, you're not a professional driver. Your primary objective when you get out of bed in the morning is to run a very, very busy business. So you're the ideal candidate to ask that question. In your opinion, what would be the answer? Is GT3 getting too quick?
No, from my point of view.
I must say, Derek has raced a long time, so he's perhaps not the person to ask, because you're more experienced than most gentleman drivers.
Yeah, well, I mean, I passed a lot of GT3s out on the track there at night time. I passed probably 3 or 4 GT3s out there, which is great because that means that the guys that are racing them to their capability, and they're not, crashing them all over the place. So the cars are only as fast as you make them go. And basically, you buy the car, but you can't buy the talent, so make them go as fast as you possibly can. And you get guys that can, the armed gentleman drivers that can actually make the cars go. So, no, in my opinion, the cars are brilliant.
You enjoy that. Now then, this might be news to our viewers and listeners, but I used to run a Clio team, and this man used to drive one of the cars I looked after. And talking of Clio Cup, I found this one lurking. Jade Edwards, who's a regular competitor in Clio Cup. Now, Jade, this year, 2019, have you got something together to compete in Clio Cup again?
It's looking that way. Obviously, at this stage of the year, we always need a little bit more money. The sponsorship hunt is definitely underway, but it's looking more positive. The fact that I've done 2 seasons now, people know the name, people know the sort of sponsorship scheme that I do, so it's definitely looking better than it was this time last year, but we're not signed up and sorted just yet.
Derek, we met in 2007, which is about a million years ago, in Clio Cup.
That's right. You were only 22 and I was 23.
You were younger than me, I think. It's sad, I think, to see that 2019 is going to be the last year of Clio Cup.
Yeah. The Clio Cup was a brilliant. It was a brilliant series, and also it was a great feeder series into the touring cars and other support races. But the cars were just brilliant.
It's a bit of an affair for me because my dad actually won the series in 2000 when it first Clio package. So he started the Clio Cup. and I'm obviously doing the last year of the Clear Cup. So if I could get a good year under my belt and sort of sign off with Edwards and Edwards, that'd be a really good family story.
And let's not forget that granddad raced Renault 5s, so the Renault Sport thing in the UK goes even further back. A driver like using Clio Cup as a starter, an entry formula, where do you look?
So for me, I think touring cars is the only way to go at this stage. I run under sponsorship only, so I have no self-funding going into my motorsport, and the amount of coverage that the TOCA package can give a sponsor, the natural progression is Clio Cup to British touring cars. So that's where I'll be looking. But as I've always said, I've been around the Creventic series, I've done some GT racing, I absolutely love it. So if my career steers a little bit back in the GT direction, I'm not going to fight it too hard.
Great, thanks for talking to you guys. Bit off subject, back to Dubai, Derek, back to reality.
Yes.
No more reminiscing. Great stuff. Talk to you again.
Derek Prius and Jade Edwards, both Clio Cup UK runners in their time, and Jade trying to get the budget together to run for this year. As you said, the final year of Clio Cup UK, although plenty of Clio Cups in Europe still running. The current version of the Clio is being replaced, and the thought is that it could well be back after a sabbatical. In 2020 it'll be Mini Challenge that will support British touring cars, but at the moment I'm not entirely certain how many years of a deal that is. But great to see Jade here again. She had a successful GT4 season with her sister, I think I seem to remember, in an Aston Martin with Chloe, and good to see her back. And Joe's right, it is third generation, and I've commentated on all three generations of the Edwards family in various motorsport events, mostly with them driving Renaults, and that makes me feel particularly old, bro.
It's when I had a club meeting at Thruxton earlier, I'd say last year now, when there was Neville Hayes' granddaughter, not commentating but part of the scene, and who was the other one? There was another grandson involved in that meeting as well. Anyway, more importantly is that we have a new fastest lap of the session. Remember that car that didn't have an engine during the qualifying?
The Santa Claus.
The Santa Lock Audi. They've not only managed to put the car on pole position, they've made me lose my bet again, because it's another sub 2 minute lap, 1 minute 59.234, set by Simon Gachet, who is actually at the wheel of the car. But they've also managed to get through and put all five drivers behind the wheel of the car, with Daniel De Bruze having done, or in the middle of now, doing his second stint. So the five drivers have all done their laps. Daniel De Bruze is actually out just because when he did his stint, we were under code 60, so I suspect he just wants to drive it a little bit more quickly now. But they got through their first three drivers very quickly and efficiently in the first half hour of the session. Then we had that code 60, which Daniel had to suffer. Then Simon Gachet, or Simon Gachet, went out and set that fast lap, 1:59.234, and now they put Daniel back in the car. So I think all that hard work from the Santa Lot mechanics has paid off.
Did well, good job, and that car clearly going very well, and the drivers repaying all that hard work. We talk about Clio Cup. That's been a great feeder series in touring car racing. The BMW M235i Racing Cup car, originally conceived as a class for the VLN at the Nordschleife at the Nürburgring, and that has brought some great drivers on down through the years. We've got a couple here, and Bruce Jones is down with one of their teams.
Yanis Smerlis, I believe you're the only Greek driver in this incredibly international cosmopolitan race, driving in a fun cup, well, the BMW Cup car. What is your first impression of the Dubai 24?
Yeah, it's great here. It's a great feel. Now we do our first lap in the night. It's a great experience. Not all the track is with lights, so you have to be a little bit careful. It's a lot of traffic, but until now it's everything fine, and I think that we'll be gonna go tomorrow, and maybe we have a chance to win.
Now, it's not your first 24-hour race. I understand you've competed at the Nürburgring in the 24 hours there.
Yeah, I drive the last 3 years on the 24 hours in Nürburgring. Last year I won the V5 class with the Porsche. Also a great experience, and for first time now in Dubai.
Now here's a challenge for you. There's a Porsche up the pit lane, all Brazilian drivers, painted in the Brazilian flag. Your project for 2020 is an all-Greek car, I reckon.
Yeah, we talk already with some people. This is a dream for me. Maybe it's come true. We'll see.
All right, 2021. I'll give you a year's grace. Thanks, Jan. It's good to meet you.
So heading down into the last 15.5 minutes of night practice. This has gone through very quickly indeed. And Johnny, what have you been keeping your eye on recently?
Always keeping an eye as far as TCR is concerned. A 12-car entry this weekend and makes up the lion's share of the TCE race. Best in class in this night practice is the 138 Jake Giddings driven Team Dynamics car. That's the Team Dynamics with WRC Development's Audi RS3. As I say that, one of the GT cars leaps ahead of it, but it's still 138 that's fastest, ahead of Stefan Tanner in the 112 Autorama Motorsport Volkswagen Golf, and it's another Audi third quickest, but promises to be a really tight fight that between very similar cars, and we're hearing from Bas Kooten earlier on that they're basically the same chassis underneath, or certainly the Audi, the Volkswagen and the Cupra are, and then we have a little bit more variation as far as the Honda Civic FK7, and it's good to see that car brought to the meeting by KCMG. So they've actually got 3 cars here in total with their 2 Nissan GTRs as well. Henry Lee Jr. currently driving the FK7 in car 122, and that's 6th in class.
Yeah, in that class, that was where the 2 latecomers to the night practice ball were as well. Red Camel, Ivo Breuker's Cody Hill have now driven that car, but as John was saying a moment ago, less than a quarter of an hour to go, they still have 2 drivers to get through to do their 2 qualifying laps in the remaining part of the evening practice, John.
Let's go back down the pit lane where Joe Bradley and Bruce Jones are working very hard to bring us plenty of driver reaction. A man who I'm most used to seeing with Aston Martin. In fact, he's still got his Aston Martin suit on down in the pit lane. Mark Farmer is with Joe Bradley.
He's in one of the prettiest cars here, arguably, though, the BMW M4, the GT4 spec car. Mark, car 430, you've just brought it in. For me, it's one of the prettiest cars out there. It's a proper-looking race car, but you know, it's like the car I could drive on the road.
Yeah, I've been staring at it all season in British GT, and you know, the garage next to us and everything. And I drive an M4 on the road, so I always kind of wondered what it'd be like to jump in one as a race car. And needless to say, it's quite different.
It's gone quiet, which means, looking across the screens, we've gone purple. We've got a code 60, but we'll continue talking to Mark. So, Mark, in difference to the car that you drive, the Aston Martin you drive in British GT, this GT4 spec car, it's a little bit different or a lot different?
Yeah, quite different. Yeah, the driving technique is very, very different. Fortunately, we've got Jack Mitchell with us, who kind of won the GT4 British GT Championship last season. So he's a pretty dab hand in the car, knows it inside out. He also knows the circuit. So he's really helped us to refine our driving techniques. As you say, very, very different. Kind of different on the brakes. You have to be very, very patient. The car rolls a lot, moves around quite a bit. And, you know, so you've got to be very, very, very careful. Very different to the car that I'm used to.
And what about the car you're going to drive this season? It's the new GT3 spec Aston Martin. Have you had a chance to test any of that yet?
Yeah, we had a test at Snetterton. It was pretty good. Got down to scratch pretty quickly. The car is, well, it's a thing of great beauty. It's very, very different to the old car with the V8 turbo instead of the V12, so the noise is very different. It revs a lot lower, and that's something to get used to. But probably the biggest thing is just the front end with the aero is so good. It's extraordinary. So we're looking forward to an exciting year.
And you're staying with TF Sport. Other than having to put up with Mike Pickup, I would imagine that feels like a lovely family, good having a good family around you.
As you say, Mike Pickup is he is a bit of a challenge up there.
Your thoughts going into the race? It's very busy here in night practice. It's pretty much what's going to be
busy. It's so busy, and it's being in the slower car. Definitely a technique to being overtaken. You really feel for the. And in the daytime it's kind of okay, but at night it's where they are. And there are some sections of the circuit where dark you can hardly see, and you know, when they try and get there, it's real kind of touch and go. So I think as far as the race is concerned, it's really about our trouble, avoiding contact, and
best of luck for the rest of the weekend. Thanks for joining, Mark Farmer.
Under 10 minutes to go. Very interested to see those T3 and GT4 cars in a competitive, having driven one of the old under full course 60, full course purple, for the accident that's happened at the back straight. This is the 701. Oh, 701, is it? Yes, I thought that this is the 70.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I was going to say that's a Vortex, not a Lambo. The darkness, I can pick that out. That's down at turn 10, which is at the end of the back straight. 8 is the long hairpin. There's a little kink at 9, and then turn 10 right at the bottom of the back straight, and that car is going to need a flatbed to get it back. That's from the fastest part of the circuit to the slowest part of the circuit. It's the only place that any of the big cars use first gear down there, Johnny. Not sure if there was another car involved there.
No.
I don't think so.
But the very good news is the suggestion that Arno Gomez, who was driving it at the time, is OK. He's going to be taken to the medical centre for some precautionary checks. But the Vortex, a very, very fast car, high-powered 6.2-litre V8. But if you do have a bump in one, there's not an awful lot of protection around in terms of the sort of fiberglass, almost outer skin. But then the roll cage that protects you within, very, very tough indeed.
Just a couple of tweets coming in here. Ian McCarthy, by the way, taking issue with Joe Bradley down in the pit. He says he's got no idea what will constitute a chilly night. Forced myself to put the snow shovel away till at least Sunday. But, you know, thanks for the excuse. I can be watching this on the telly now. And Right Turn Lover, among a few others, is seeing the Herbeth Motorsports number 91 this weekend, number 91, been a bit quiet. That is actually a fair point. There's a few people that have said we haven't been told, but in all honesty, Paul, it's not always the car, that's not always the team, rather, that sets the place alight early on. They tend to come to life in morning warm-up and then somewhere about a third to a halfway through the race.
I would think the fact that we've not been talking about it should be setting people trembling in their boots, because they will have the car that's best set up. They haven't gone off on any wild goose races trying to get extra lap times. But no, it's a point well made. It is currently 18th in the times. Robert Renauer is currently at the wheel of it. Let me just check, make sure they've qualified all of their drivers so far. Yes, Daniel Alleman, Ralph Bone and Alfred Renauer all did their qualifying within half an hour of the beginning of the session. Robert Renauer has been in it ever since, which means he's got most of the Code 60s that we've had. But there's been nothing to say, so we haven't said anything.
By the way, if you want to make a point or ask a question, I realise we're coming down the last 6 minutes of our coverage today, but there's plenty of it tomorrow, including warm-up and then the whole warm-up in audio and then the whole race live in sound and vision. It's at RSL_studio on Twitter. Bruce, a point about the Herbeth guys is, at the end of last season, they looked a bit under pressure, and in fact, they were making mistakes leading up to the race, and that's not happened here so far.
Yes, let's not put a hex on them, but the team that was always undramatic, they had that different twist. Daniel Alleman, well, rather sheepishly at Spa after he went off ahead of the really serious stuff, said, well, that's another box ticked in my racing driver's career. Crashed at Eau Rouge, yep, that one's done. And then they had the moment before, again, most unlike them, ahead of the event at Kota. But this is the team that just does everything in a very, very calm fashion. Right now, Robert Renauer, the car, he's talking to the crew. The garage has got 2 Porsches in it. It's got the Porsche Centre Hong Kong entry, and likewise, they've run through their programme. Paul has seen them out and ticked them back in, and quite a few teams. Porsche Lorient, all their cars now, both their cars tucked away. I think for a lot of the teams, if they've got their laps done now, they're putting the cars back in the garage. But yeah, a couple of little trip-ups, but not yet, and we're not wishing it on the Herbeth Motorsport crew. So strong through recent years.
Yeah, and still running last year's car and likely to do so if they can't get a better BOP for the 2019 car. The 701 Vortex, which we were just pointing out what a good-looking car that was earlier on. It's not looking quite as it came out of the factory, with severe damage to the back panel on that car. It's been shortened up a bit, and the rear wing, it would be great for going anti-clockwise round a short oval, because it's on a bit of an angle. But it's not so good round here, and that's going to be a late night or an early morning even for the Vortex crew. And just what Paul Truswell was saying some 85 minutes ago, you don't want to put the car into the wall in this session. In fact, even if you do put it in the wall in this session, you want to do it in the first 5 minutes, not the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's going to be a late night for those boys there. Johnny, who's got the fastest time tonight still?
It's the Santalok Audi still.
Oh, yes, that's right, with the new engine. Now we know why they put the new engine in.
Simon Gachet was the driver at the time.
Yeah.
And they've now done all, well, in fact, as soon as they did the fastest lap, that was their driver doing his qualifying lap. So it only took them just over an hour to do the qualifying laps for all 5 drivers in the Santalok Audi.
Oh, I'm not liking the look at the back of that Vortex, and neither will its team. The left rear suspension askew, that could be gearbox. The engine's back there as well. Diff and drive shafts, and that's left rear mainly is where the contact, the heaviest contact, has taken place from that normally pristine car. And the under trays come off under the back as well, and that looks very, very second-hand, and that's a sad sight as it comes in with the new Audi Q8 intervention vehicle providing cover behind the flatbed. We've gone back to green for the last 3 minutes or so. I should just mention as well, as a point of order more than anything else, that Paul Truswell seems to have upgraded his headlight this year, and by that I do mean the light that he wears on his head, and that's very bright indeed. I may have to get some of those blinds to go down the windows.
If it's too bright, let me know, and I'll.
That's very good.
Yeah, it's not strictly necessary because the commentary box isn't completely dark. So it's a night practice session. So
he's dialing himself in.
I'm just testing to see what works, what doesn't.
It looks like you've got side lights and a headlight there, potentially.
I can
so
make
you
all
can make
three
it
go
even
on
brighter.
if you want.
Oh my goodness, that looks like my BMW motorcycle. I've got exactly the same thing.
Very good.
Hang on a second. I've got a note from that Bruce has been asked to pass on from the pit lane officials. Bruce,
V8 Racing very unhappy with your new head torch. It's dazzling them in their garage on the opposite side of the track, Paul.
Sort it out.
Right, we will sort it out. As I say, that's what night practice is for.
Let's go down to Joe Bradley, who's with the Vortex. It's been delivered back into the. I was going to say the dead car park, but the sort of Parc Ferme area behind the pits, Joe, and it looked a bit sad on the back of the flatbed. What are you seeing?
I'm not quite with the Vortex, but I'm with the Vortex team, who were waiting patiently for the car to be delivered to their pit garage. However, it hasn't. It's turned right and gone to the back of the paddock somewhere. So the team were waiting, hopefully, to hurriedly get it into the garage and fix whatever's gone wrong.
No, they're not.
And now they're up in arms because they're going to have to retrieve it from the back of the paddock.
Well, it's into the Abarth Formula 4 paddock area. That's exactly where it is, and it isn't going to be pushed. They're going to need to take trolleys because the left rear suspension will not allow that car to be pushed by hand. It's coming off the flatbed now. It's got quite a lot of damage on the back of the diffuser of that car. And if I was the team, I'd be down around the back. They've got one of these very swish flatbeds where the flatbed itself comes completely off the truck and then sits on the floor. So it's not going to come off at an angle. But if I was the team, I'd be round there now just to make sure there's no further damage caused to that car in unloading it from the truck. As we head towards the last 38 seconds, Ricardo Feller in the BWT Muka Motorsport. This is the bright orange and black car that Marcus Winkelhock was driving to such effect earlier on, although not managing to keep it entirely within the track boundaries, to the much to the chagrin of the race officials. Down through 14 into 13 into 14, excuse me, 14 into 15, let's get it right. And then heading up the hill. And it's still, that car still looks really, really edgy to drive, which is fine for a single fast lap, but if you're going to sit and drive it for 2 hours, that's going to be very, very physically and mentally draining, that, Johnny.
Oh, yeah, particularly late at night and early in the morning as well, and I'm sure there is some adjustment to be made to that. Of course, it's got to be a compromise, and for all 5 drivers too, but generally the lesser experience, the AM and the semi-pros take precedence because Marcus Winkelhock can kind of adjust to anything, really, and he naturally will want it more tippy-toe than the gentleman drivers.
Into the pit lane, the bright red Mark Carr's machine, 32nd position, with the left-hand side door open. Now, had it just popped open, or has there been some contact there? Answer, I know not, but just spotted that as it came in. The checkered flag is out. We'll give you the times in a moment after people have come across the line, but I do want to get down to Bruce Jones, who's having a look at that vortex. This is the story of the night, I'm afraid, and it's not a good one. It's damage to the 701 vortex. What are you looking at, Bruce? Is that a late night for the vortex, guys?
Simply because I think there might be too much damage. This isn't a car that has a lot of at the end here. They're trying to pull the tray off, but that's been effectively pulled out of the back of the car, hanging off, but it's the left rear suspension and the bodywork down the side. I'm worried.
We're right on the edge of Bruce's range there, but I think we got the gist of that. The under tray hanging off, and we've got Seb heading down there with a camera so that we can get a little bit better view of what is going on, but it looked pretty severe when it was on the back of the flatbed. Nighttime practice coming to an end, warm up, and then the whole race live tomorrow. And it's bad news for the Vortec 1.1. The left rear suspension towed in massively around the front edge of that car. The wheel is damaged as well. That's been a big hit on the left rear, probably on the arm core that's bent the rear rim on the left-hand side. The Hankook tyre has stayed on the rim. Joe Bradley, you're looking at it from much closer than I am. That looks like it's had contact with either barrier or concrete or both.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what it's had contact with, but it has. But however, I can tell you that the suspension pickup points are all where they should be, and we've had the we've had something snap that makes that left-hand rear wheel toe massively in. The rest is just superficial, it's just bodywork. The main bits where the suspension mounts to looks all intact. Remember, this is a space frame car, so underneath this huge amount of bodywork, you've got pretty much a very slim skeleton of a car. So if we've now got team down here pulling off bits of bodywork and the diffuser.
Joe, what I'd be worried about
getting it off.
What I'd be worried about here is the any shock that's been fired through that left rear wheel through into the differential or the gearbox there. That would be my worry.
It's not massive though, honestly. It looks much worse than it is when you get up close. It's a couple of hours. We'll get this back out.
I think that's more tyre wall than anything properly solid like concrete or Armco, actually. And whatever it's hit has given a little bit to help lessen the blow.
John is right, however, in fairness, John is right, because the energy on an impact travels throughout the car. However, these guys are experienced enough to realise that, and I'm sure they won't just be at the rear corner where they'll be looking throughout the car. Yeah. And it is a major rebuild job overnight, I would think.
Thanks, Joe, and Seb, our cameraman, who hustled down there. The team take off the remnant of the Vortec off the back of that flatbed truck, and as far as TCE is concerned, the fastest car, as it was in qualifying, the 378 Colin White Ginetta G55, ahead of the Team Dynamic WRC Developments TCR, and as it was in qualifying, only the CWS Ginetta, Johnny, breaking the stranglehold of the TCR cars in the top 10, and it's ahead of all of them, exactly as we saw in qualifying.
Yes, it is. And remember that the other two cars in SP3 are, first of all, the other Vortex, the Sirocco-shaped GC10 Vortex, which doesn't carry the same sort of speed as the CWS Engineering Ginetta. And the other SP3 car is the Porsche Cayman, which is a little long in the tooth now, but nevertheless...
That was getting a gearbox change earlier on as well, wasn't it?
And has had problems through the day, yes,
Let's have a look at the rest of the TCE results then. That's down to 10th is JW Bird Motorsport, Alltech Racing in 11th. The best of the year threes is the 634 Lotus Elise Cup, Lotus PB Racing. Its team car, the 633, did get out and finished in 17th position in TCE. Best of the Cup ones, the Fun M Motorsport 802, as that was in qualifying as well, ahead of Duo Racing, the two Cup 1 cars. Third in A3, the GR Motorsports BMW E46 M3, which that one might be one of the older cars in the field as well, when we had that question earlier on. But I'm going to leave that to do a little bit more, to let someone else do a little bit more of the research on that. So that's the TCE night practice. And let's go to the GTs then, the cars at the front of the field, headed by the A6 category. That's GT3 in terms of the formula, as the 311, the highway just beyond the track, is still very busy for this time of night. And Centrelock with just a 4/10 advantage over Grasser Racing Team. Now, Centrelock didn't qualify, Johnny, but that's a feather in their cap, getting ahead by 4/10 of a second of the guys who plonked their Lamborghini on pole position. But it's still three mid-engine VAG cars using that V10 engine and that layout.
Yeah, but I think priority for Centrelock was, first of all, to get all their drivers cycled through and successfully qualified from the night practice session, and then to try and push the car to see whether it did have pace, because they missed out on all of qualifying after that engine problem, which took them a fair old few hours. But that is a nice bit of reward for the French squad, I think. All that hard work earlier on, and they're fastest in the evening session.
Unlike qualifying, where the top five were those V10s, either Lamborghini or Audi, KCMG with the 35, Nissan Nismo GTR GT3 in fourth position. But once again, the Mercedes a little further down. The best here, the Abu Dhabi Racing Black Falcon number 2, again, as per qualifying, but another place further down in 7th. They qualified in 6th.
They did, and it was fairly late time, certainly from Kieran Blakemolen towards the end of the session. Jerome putting a 2:01.044 in as his last lap of that 90 minutes. And the top five bookended by A6 AM cars then, Centrelock and the Target Racing Lamborghini Huracan, which qualified as the best AM car for the grid.
It did.
Earlier on today.
Outside the top 10 in GT, we've got all the A6 cars going down to 20th position, and nobody having broken into that, with a mix of Pro and ARMS. Car Collection Motorsport, the 34 car, only down in 20th position, 4 seconds off the pace this evening. But let's not read too much into that, because a lot of people just going through, getting their drivers through qualifying. Outside the top 20 in night practice for GT is where we have to go before we see our next class leader, and that's the Lippert Motorsport 710 Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo.
And beyond that, the 991 class, topped by the 969 Porsche of MSG and HRT Motorsports, just ahead of one of many MRS GT Racing Porsches. The 980 car was second fastest, ahead of the Russian outfit, Vinting Spunting by HRT, and their 968 car 28th in the GT Series classification. Then we got the second fastest SPX car, Modern Motorsport, are there as well. Have run Clios in the past, but they've moved over.
Another Clio connection there.
Indeed, yes. So no A2s here this weekend, but they've gone Porsches instead with the 991 class there.
in the 31 to 40 positions, 991s, SPX, and the first of the GT4 cars. And that, again, a Clio connection.
Sicily Motorsport, who've run Clios in the past, and also a big name in the British Touring Car Championship with their Mercedes A-Class machines. But it's a Mercedes AMG for Sicily, and 462 has been, I think it was Frank Bird who was putting in some good times in that car earlier on. 38th ahead of the other Porsche Lorient car, and then Dragon Racing second in GT4.
Very local team.
Yes. Based here in the UAE. GT4, remember, has as many as 12 cars entered into it, 13 cars entered into it this weekend.
And most of them are in positions between 41 and 50. SPX Speed Lover, the 778, normally the 78 Porsche, that's in 50th position. But as I said, the bulk of the GT4 cars, Mercedes, Audis, there is an Audi GT4, that's the Fox Motorsport car, the 447, 44th position for them. BMWs, Audis, and of course Mercedes in there. And outside the top 50 in GT, a handful of cars, including QSR Racing School in 51st position. The last of the 991s is the number 989 MRS GT Racing Porsche. Core Oyster Racing, the last car to put a time in this evening. That BMW M3, the number 717. Must be in with a shout of being the oldest car here, oldest chassis here, the SPX car in 55th position. Thanks very much to our pit lane team, Nick Damon, Joe Bradley and Bruce Jones, also to our technical crew on site, our TV colleagues at Snulls 521. It was Paul Trustwell, Johnny Palmer and me, John Hindhoff in the booth. We'll have audio coverage of warm-up tomorrow and then the whole of the race. And if you want to know what you're in for, let's just have a little reminder of what's going on tonight in night practice here in Dubai.
So it started off with a drama for one of the BMWs, looping round at the end of the pit wall, and thankfully was pointing in the right direction relatively quickly, the 603 BMW M3.
G&R Motorsport car.
And then the session livened up yet further. It was flooded with traffic early on. A glimpse of the Herbert Motorsport Porsche, as we've not mentioned it too much today, has been there, going about its business very quietly indeed, which is ominous, perhaps, for everybody else. But Mercedes and Audi looking strong this weekend, as is the Lamborghini, which took pole position in the session. There was an issue for the 112 Golf, which needed recovering. It almost made the pit lane before conking out and needed to be plucked from just on the inside of turn 15. And everyone getting used to how little light there is in places around this circuit, particularly towards turns 3, 4 and 5. And then you get onto the main straight out of turn 16, and it could very easily be daylight because of the amount of floodlighting from the main grandstand. Big story, though, coming out of night practice this evening. The crash for the Vortex 1.1, car 701, which needed to be retrieved by that snazzy flatbed, which actually descends to road level. And I'm afraid what was left of the Vortex was swept in the direction of the team by the officials. They will have some hard work to do tonight.
Joe Bradley confident it's only bodywork. I'm not so sure, but I admire his optimism. We'll be on air tomorrow, Friday, for the race. Remember, it is the weekend, Friday and Saturday. Check your local listings or go to www.24hseries.com. Audio coverage of warm-up as well. radiolemans.com. Check the schedule at the foot of the page for RS1. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage. If you're here at the track, have a smashing Thursday evening. If you're further afield, make sure you set some reminders so that you can be back with us to find out exactly what happens throughout the whole of the 24 hours of the Hankook 24 Hours of Dubai 2019. From the Autodrome at Dubai, it's bye for now.